All right, let's now briefly talk about organ graft donations. So, what, first of all, is going to have the greatest likelihood of success? What type of donation? This depends on the HLA type. And recall that HLA genes code for what again? The MHC receptors. So this will determine if your immune cells attack the organ donation or not. If you have very similar HLA types as the organ you're receiving, then you'll have a very good chance of accepting that and not reacting against it. So let's go through the different types of grafts real quick. First one, autograft. What does auto mean? Self, right? So it's from yourself, basically. And that has a very good chance because you shouldn't react against yourself. Next one is syngeneic graft. Syn means similar, and this is from a twin, so an identical twin. That also has a very good chance of surviving. Third one is allograft. Allo means other, so this is from someone who is not related to you. But if they have a very similar HLA type, then there will be a better chance of the graft surviving. Final one is xenograft. Xeno means completely foreign, means foreign, and this is actually from a different species. I don't know about a cat, but you can think of like pig hearts being transplanted for valves or pieces of your heart. All right, so speaking of transplants, let's talk about what happens when you do reject a transplant. And let's talk about the different types of transplants. So there are 4 main types. The first one, and the fastest acting one, is hyperacute rejection. This can actually occur within minutes of transplant. Well, what is very fast acting when we're talking about the immune system? Antibodies, right? So this is due to an antibody or humoral immune response. And it's very fast acting. And what type of hypersensitivity is this then? This is type 2, cytotoxic, right? Right. All right, the next type of transplant rejection is acute. Acute rejection takes about weeks to months after the transplant. And the reason it's slower is because it's cell-mediated. So what types of cells are we talking about? So in addition to antibodies, it involves T cells. And what type of T cells? What do you think? What binds to this MHC receptor? This is type 1. CD8 T cells, okay? So that's a CD8 T cell mediated response primarily. We can actually reverse acute transplant rejection with immunosuppressant medication that we'll talk about a little bit later. Third type of transplant rejection is chronic. And this is actually due to the T cells thinking that the foreign MHC receptors are actually self-MHCs presenting foreign antigens. So they attack the graft by that means, and this is not reversible. That's chronic rejection. It occurs months to years later. Fourth type is a little unique. It's kind of interesting, actually. It's graft versus host disease. So the recipient is actually attacked by the foreign immune cells, the foreign T cells. So that's a little odd, but that's how that one works. Those are the main types of transplant rejections. You can study them in a little bit more detail, but those are the basics of what you need to know.